1 week season.
OWS fam, the nation, my dudes and dudettes. Hilow here. I am joined by an OWS community member, Andy Runyon, who we are going to go through what we're calling a community draft. This is the first installment. This is part of the Best Ball Plus package. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to tag along for one of Andy's drafts. We're going to rock a puppy 3 today. And we're just going to hit the ground running. So this is part of the Best Ball Plus package. Should be rolling out more of these. You should see these, and these should be posted to YouTube. If you're watching this, you know that. But these are going to be posted to YouTube. And we're just going to talk some theory. I'm just going to be here to facilitate some of those discussions as we are going through this draft. This is 100% completely Andy's entry. So I'm not going to be making picks. I'm not going to be making any decisions. That's all on Andy. I'm just here to facilitate and talk some theory and talk some roster construction stuff, kind of all the stuff that we have been talking about through the Best Ball Plus product. So with that said, Andy, how are we doing tonight, man?
I'm great. I'm super excited for this. But I guess I should have made one thing clear is if when I win the 200K, what percentage do you get? What's your cut, man?
Nothing. This is all you, bro.
All right, that's a good deal. That's a good deal.
Yeah, right? Let's go. So yeah, jump on in, and we were gonna hit this running, man. Let's see here. Big time. What spot we gonna get? Let's go. This is exciting, man. I like this.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite slot?
Any and all.
Yeah, you like them all.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. When you're through, I guess, like 240, 250 drafts, it's like you've seen everything.
Yeah.
But 1 through 4 is nice, obviously, with the big 4 up there. We'll say 1 through 5 with Jamar Chase as well. He's a tier below for me personally.
Okay.
But yeah, that top 5 is nice. 6 through, we'll say 8 gets a little hairy at times, maybe 6 through 9.
7. Got 7.
Yes, let's go. That's perfect. So there's a lot of theory that goes into this. Like, if a lot of people that I see are very stagnant with how they view the first round, in that they're just going to select whatever guy per their ADP, right? I'm a little bit more on the freedom of choice, freedom of decision making in the first 2 rounds. And the reason for that is through like the first 2 rounds, you see a very stagnant combinatorial exposure, in that like the first 2 players selected on a team are very similar most of the time because players are just sticking to ADP. So I like to mix things up. I'm actually, I just announced that JM is going to join me on the Best Ball Theory podcast this week. And
Awesome.
That's going to be one of the topics we cover is kind of how we're handling this, straying from the field in the first couple of rounds. So what are you thinking, man? What are you thinking from the 7th spot?
Well, with that, I think Patrick Mahomes, right? Get weird.
Yeah. Not that weird. Rein it in, Andy. Rein it in.
I saw Mahomes go number 2 the other day, and then CMC was number 5, and I was at like 6. I'm like, no.
Yeah, like
I would love to get CMC at 5.
Especially in these like smaller barrier to entry contests where it's easier for. I'm gonna stop talking.
All right, I'm on the spot. I'll go Cook.
You are just speaking to my heartstrings right now.
I've listened to all your podcasts. I'm getting right. I'm ready.
Oh no, I got influence and I didn't mean to. Yeah, Dalvin is obviously ranked as my RB3 currently going into the season. Love that pick. The upside for Minnesota's offense overall, I think, is extremely expanded. Obviously with McConnell and the new coaching staff there. So that's a big deal for Dalvin. Obviously, reports are that he could be seeing fewer carries. To me, that's a plus because the carries that he was seeing under Zimmer and the previous coaching staff, they were between the tackles. They were like his body is getting beaten down. He's dislocated his shoulder 3 or 4 times.
Shoulder all messed up, right?
Yeah. So to me, that's a plus. I want to see him getting more pass catching opportunities. He's always offered that bankable 40 to 60 receptions, but like now that ceiling is a lot higher for the pass catching role. So I like that pick a lot. I like Dalvin a lot.
Right on.
What we're seeing from the 7 spot, if we think about like who Dalvin is paired with in the early rounds, typically his ADP over the last couple months has been between that 10 to 13 spot. So we're thinking we don't really want to pick the guys who are typically going at the turn, right?
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out here with some decisions.
Okay. Yeah, I got my weeks 17 correlations. Got them all memorized.
Yes, sir. Let's go playing the Packers. That's gonna be a big one.
So should I go Jones here, or is that going to be, or is everybody doing that, you think?
I think that's a very common build in the first couple of rounds.
But Najee, nobody's probably getting Najee and Cook.
This is true for sure. Bankable, bankable.
Make it
workload.
unique, right?
Yeah. I like that. So we've started 2 running backs here, running back with the first couple picks. So when we think about like how the field is viewing these drafts, they're trying to, I would say the tendency is to pigeonhole your draft and how you think about the draft into a nomenclature of drafts of like what is being done. So we're starting 2 running backs. We're starting to think like superhero running back or robust running back is kind of the nomenclatures that are being thrown around. I say shit can all of that. I say get rid of it. We don't need to be like pigeonholing how we're looking at draft strategy with something that's being done, something that's being talked about, something, a game plan that's been developed over the last 3-4 years. So that gives us the flexibility to wait until the later rounds to really make those decisions, or the middle to later rounds to really make those decisions about how our roster is going to be coming together. So this is good to see a running back start on a 0.5 PPR site. Obviously, there's numerous studies that have been done about the upside of starting running back in 0.5 PPR.
Sweet. Let's see. 7 picks away. A lot of receivers.
Yeah, and also like what people are typically thinking at this point from the field tendencies I've seen is, okay, Minnesota and Pitt. What am I thinking from there? I'm thinking Green Bay and Baltimore, right? Their week 17 opponent.
Right.
Again, super early for me personally to be thinking about those things. I'm kind of just letting the draft come to me at this point, seeing how things play out. And I'm going to worry about those correlations, those stacks, those secondary options a little bit later on in the draft. Personally, that's how I'm handling it.
So are you looking at value now, like AJ Brown slip in, like?
Yeah, so I'm kind of letting the draft room decide where my draft goes, as opposed to me forcing the issue at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I got my draft juice.
Yeah, people are getting hungry for running backs even.
Yeah, so it's nice to be ahead of that run for sure. When
Yep.
you're kind of viewing the tendencies of this draft room. For sure.
It's like a Charger. How you feeling about Keenan versus Mike?
Personally, my lean is Mike Williams. We've seen,
I like the younger guy, right?
yeah, we've seen 3 years in a row of underlying metrics decline for Keenan Allen. Mike Williams obviously last year saw the role change, right? He went from like a possession receiver type X role to more of a downfield threat. And under the new coaching staff last year, that implies to me or indicates to me that is going to be a trend we see going forward. So I like the more boom to Mike Williams' game this year as opposed to years past. And I've said some things about Keenan Allen on previous podcasts that that has kind of driven my exposure when choosing between the two there. I like that pick.
Has he tweeted at you yet? I saw who's Melvin Gordon tweeted at you.
Yeah, I actually, so that was funny. I didn't tag him. I didn't do anything. He just kind of must have name searched himself to find my tweet. I tweeted at Treylon Burks because he's my dude today in the announcement for the JM podcast. So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe he'll join us. That'd be sick.
That'd be awesome.
No, you need to be focusing on your routes, bro.
He just has to run people over. That's all you gotta do.
Oh my God, that man is a grown ass man. I'm excited. I'm excited for him this year for sure. My exposure kind of indicates that as well. So look at that. Look at that 3-4 turn for the guy on the end there with doubling up quarterbacks. So that's an indication that we might see a quarterback run in the next couple of rounds. Again, this is kind of overall field tendencies, how I'm viewing and I guess sizing up a draft room. I see something like that. That's obviously out of the normal. That might spark some different feelings against, amongst the other managers in the room. So just something to keep in mind. We might have to wait on our quarterback. We don't know. We'll see where the draft takes us. But I've been a fairly big proponent of taking one of the top 6 or 7 quarterbacks this year. So I think the upside, that's really the cutoff of the guys that have a shot at core QB1 overall for me.
Go with Waddle here. 42.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Waddle's an interesting case in the sense that a lot of his expected value this year, I think, is going to come down to schemed usage. But that said, part of the Shanahan tree is schemed usage. So
that's your goal, right?
there's a lot of upside there for Waddle. And at ADP, I actually prefer Waddle to Tyreek Hill.
All right.
Yeah. So I like that pick. I like that you staying away from the standard build mindset and just taking what has come to us, like Mike Williams, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, all the way down from your 2nd to your 4th picks are really just the value that fell to you at that point. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be too many people with those 4 players together.
Yeah.
And that's what you got. That's what you need to win a massive one, right?
We don't know. The answer
I guess that's true, right? There's not enough information, huh?
Yeah, the answer is we don't know, but having a unique combination of players, particularly in those first 7 rounds, obviously means you're fighting against less of the field. So the more unique you can get, the better off you are when we start talking about the playoff rounds. There's obviously multiple ways to do that. Players falling in ADP in those first 7 rounds is a very easy way to gain those unique combinations. We talked about one earlier with mixing up our first and second round exposures and combinations, but there's many different ways. So we're kind of combining a couple of those ways on this draft in particular, which is nice.
Yeah.
All right, so top quarterbacks on the board. We've got Mahomes, who has been slipping recently. We've got Mahomes, and Kyler and Hurts are probably the last members of that, tier of quarterbacks who has a shot at the elite, the quarterback 1 overall. Right. George Kittle is probably the second to last tight end that has a shot at tight end 1 overall. And then obviously we're kind of into the RB dead zone. I'll caveat that with J.K. Dobbins is off the pup. So that's an interesting option here as well. And then obviously a smattering of wide receivers available.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, I'll take Metcalf.
I'm big on Metcalf because I think that he can win with whichever quarterback ends up throwing him the football this year.
Yeah, speaking of East, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it doesn't matter to me with a player like Metcalf who wins that quarterback battle, and him going in the 5th round, the upside that he has, I call it, now I'm drawing a blank. Disproportionate upside. The disproportionate upside that he offers at, in a 5th round valuation is more heavily weighted towards the upside than the downside there. So I like that pick a lot. So now we filled out through 5 rounds with Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Mike Williams, Jalen Waddle, and DK Metcalf at wide receiver. So a very balanced roster at this point. And we have the option to really go any way that this kind of draft room lets us go here. I like, I don't like building one way or the other, but this is a very comfortable spot to be in because we have options.
Yeah, I like that too. And then like you can like I hate when I get pigeonholed like where I feel like I need to take a certain position, even like some of the values start to drop, and I really want that value, but I feel like I'm already set there.
Yeah, so there the puppy is a very good place to push that comfortability, right? So to push that tendency to feel like you're being forced to take a position or another, because obviously the low barrier to entry gives us a little bit more or a little less pressure to feel like we have to draft a certain way.
And how do you feel about Hurts if he makes it to this next one? Like, as far as like not having AJ Brown or a New Orleans player.
To me personally, the rushing quarterbacks, that matters much less. Obviously, I'll let you make your pick and then I'll continue that.
I'll go Hurts, yeah.
Yeah, so that is a little bit easier to pull off for quarterbacks with rushing upside that have players attached to them that go after them, if that makes sense. You know, like Jalen Hurts is an interesting example because he really only has one player that's going ahead of him in drafts,
Right.
in AJ Brown. You know, you still have exposure to potential of Devontae Smith falling to you in the next round. Obviously, you still have exposure at the tight end position. And then all of his running backs are way, 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 way later. So I don't mind that one bit, feeling like, oh, I'm taking my quarterback without one of his pass catchers already, because we still have the potential. Again, not going to force the issue just quite yet, but we still have the potential for one of those guys to fall to us.
Right on.
And in this case in particular, Devonta Smith is one of those guys that we see falling below ADP at a higher rate than you know, some of these other guys attached to the other quarterbacks up top.
I've noticed that lately. His notes say that he's like has a little minor groin injury. You think that's what's doing it, or is there something else going on?
I haven't seen anything else going on. I think it's just people don't like clicking his name. It just boils down to that. Like, you know,
Right.
even Kadarius Toney goes before him, as we saw on this draft. That's a reach, but that's for another day. Oh, that's that guy. That's that wild guy on the turn who went double quarterback.
Yeah, he likes the back-to-back. Yeah. So you think Schultz has you said there's one more after Kittle. You think Schultz has one tight end one in his range of outcomes?
I think so. And the reason is there's just no proven pass catchers behind CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz on Dallas.
Yeah.
You expect Dallas to be scoring points. Dak Prescott has yearly 5,000 yard upside. So I think Schultz is probably the last of that. He's in the second tier of tight ends, but he's probably the last of the tier that has a shot at overall tight end one upside.
So I'd probably go Smith here, but you're kind of talking me into Schultz.
Well, the decision might be made for you here. We'll have to wait.
Yeah,
and see.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
He has one tight end already.
I've seen weirder stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
This decision kind of gets into that weird nebulous region where what matters more right now.
Go.
There you go. So like, what matters if those guys were both available to us? Like, what matters more? Does the correlation matter more? Does the chance at a tier 1 or 2 player at a position matter more? Like, we don't know those answers, and those answers cannot be known. We just don't have the computational power to fully comprehend that, because the scope is so large. There's so many variables at play. And that's just one of those situations where it's like, I don't know, man, I'll flip a coin. I'll let randomness take over. I'll, you know, like look at the clock, and if the minute's hand is on this side, all these random, like, and that's like very heavily rooted in like my poker game theory optimal decision-making process. But like, the answer for me is like, we don't know. And yeah, so like the decision was made for us because really there were 2 primary options for us at that pick. But yeah, if we had to make that decision, it's a very interesting thought process, I think, or thought experiment.
There's no right answer yet, huh?
Yeah. So again, we have a lot of flexibility available to us. Start thinking like we have obviously invested 2 pieces of our draft into Philadelphia's offense. So this is when kind of week 17 correlations start coming a little bit more into my mind. But again, I'm not going to reach and give up value to make those. It's more of a tiebreaker. Like, hey, if Treylon Burks and Chris Olave are available to us here, like, what do we do? Well, I'm high as hell at Treylon Burks, but like Chris Olave has a chance to be the rookie wide receiver 1. He's in that discussion. And if we have a Philadelphia stack, that could make sense to outweigh the decision for us.
Right on. It looks like we're gonna have to make that decision. Let's see.
Treylon Burks is interesting too, because a lot of the recent press to come out on him has been more negative, I guess, negative in nature. It's not even that it's like full negative. It's just like, oh, he ran one wrong route.
Yeah.
Okay, like, he's a rookie. I expect that almost.
Right. It's been such a roller coaster with him, it seems like, you know.
Yeah, it's like, this is what training camp is for, is to like get the playbook down and like get those errors. Right? Yeah, get those errors out of your system now. Yeah. So Chris Olave, again, now we have a secondary correlation, which to me carries much more leverage than, say, a Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown with Alvin Kamara. So to me, this is already a leveraged roster because we have a secondary correlated roster, which brings just as much upside as a primary correlation for week 17.
Right on. And I mean, the truth of it is, like, we just don't know, right? Like, that's like, if there's one thing I'm confident in, is that I do not know anything, right?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one for you. If Rashad Penny, Chase Edmonds, and Kareem Hunt made it to our pick, what will you be thinking?
I mean, Kareem Hunt's the big wild card right now, right? Like, if he asked for that trade, and if he got traded to a different situation, his ADP could skyrocket. And I always like getting the bottom of the ADP, so I might go there. We have the Waddle Edmonds thing going on. So that could be interesting, and stack it with some New England later.
Yeah, so the reason I said that is I think the field tendency here would be to look at our roster and be like, we already have Waddle, we already have Metcalf. I'm not going to take Chase Edmonds or Rashad Penny.
Yeah, okay.
So that is a tendency, I think, that would allow a little bit of leverage for us if we were looking to take a running back here. Because the reason for that is Tua Tagovailoa goes after the two pairing that we would have had in Jalen Waddle and Chase Edmonds. Same thing for DK Metcalf and Rashad Penny. Like, their quarterback goes much later. So to me, and I did a lot of some extensive study into like what a winning roster looks like for DFS, which translates, very well into this format where all the money is in week 17.
Yeah.
So I'll stop yapping. It was a bummer that Goddard went. Yeah, it was a bummer that Goddard went there. That would have been very nice.
He might come to me.
Yeah.
And then Harris, but feeling pretty good about my receivers. I'd like to get another back. Cook went. Just Singletary here.
I like it. I like that you weren't flustered too with the bye weeks matching up with Dalvin Cook.
That's one way to get unique, right?
Yeah, like there's so many different ways. Yeah, people, I think, I keep saying people. I think a general tendency of the field, that's a better way to put it, a general tendency of the field is to be way too concerned with bye weeks. Freaking out about the fact that we only have 3 running backs on this roster and 2 of them have week 7 buys. To me, that doesn't mean much of anything. I want the best combination of potential upside for week 17 is basically what it boils down to me.
Yeah. That's just where all the money is, right?
Yeah. I also like that you weren't flustered about tight end because Dawson Knox and Zach Ertz were on the board. To me, we have all kinds of time to figure out what we want to do with tight end. There's a ton of late tight ends that I like that, should we fall down that path in our roster building, we can make it up by taking 3 late.
I like the 3 late, get more touchdown chances, right?
Yeah, and at a very extremely touchdown driven and variant position like tight end, there is definite merit to taking 3 late because a lot of their value comes from touchdowns. And if you make week 17 and you have 3 shots at scoring a touchdown, like that is a legitimate path to success for sure. All right, so we got 1 quarterback, 3 running backs, and 5 wide receivers. We got Russell Gage, who has slipped almost 2 full rounds. We've got Derek Carr on the board still. Well, there goes Russell Gage. And then some upside young guys in Rondale Moore, Jalen Tolbert at the wide receiver position. Julio Jones, we can talk a little bit more if you're leaning that way about what I think about that pick. I didn't influence anything there.
I'm getting clues.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I'll go with Wilson's upside here.
Yes, dude. I actually love it. And that was the one guy I didn't mention that was on the board. I was going to see if you
got some Metcalf, Wilson going on.
I like that. And, oh, by the way, New York Jets end of season schedule is extremely conducive to fantasy production.
Okay.
So they've got Houston, they've got Seattle, these games that are sneaky for the fact that the teams could both be so shitty. That makes sense.
It's like the Seahawks Lions game, right? Like that's
exactly. You look at Jacksonville and Houston, that's another one, a late season pairing, correlated pairings. They combined for 2 games over 50 points last year. Both times they played, they went over 50 points. And it's like no one's paying any attention to that.
I really like Lawrence this year. I think where he's being drafted at ADP, like I think he could really blow that away. Like everybody seems to be giving up on him already. And looks to be the best prospect since Luck, like
exactly. And like
and there's such a shit show there.
Yeah, exactly. Given him the benefit of the doubt because of his coaching situation last year, I lean entirely in favor of that line of thinking. Like what we've seen from Lawrence is not what we can expect from Lawrence type thing.
And everybody gives Reich all the credit for Philly's Super Bowl, but Peterson, you gotta give him a little bit of credit too, right? Like
Nick Foles gets all the credit, bro.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah. Old BDN, man.
All right. Well, Carr's still on the board.
Yeah. So again, we have all kinds of flexibility here built into how this roster construction has come along. We've already got. Go ahead.
Carr's like a good question, like because there isn't really anybody to stack him with. I don't feel like anymore. All his guys are really kind of above that, right?
Which is an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
If you see 3 pass catchers are going before a quarterback, there's a market inefficiency one way or the other.
Something's wrong, right? Yeah.
Are the pass catchers going too early? Is the quarterback going too late? For Carr, I lean entirely in the favor of the quarterback is going too late.
Yeah. It's just
tight end
value.
Tight end happy room here, man.
Yeah, they're scooping them up.
I like that pick a lot. The reasons for that, the value one, we got him 20 spots past ADP, and his ADP has remained rather stagnant throughout this draft window. So we can assume, based on that we're one of the later teams to grab Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Also, people would be worried about taking Derek Carr without one of his pass catchers. But what do we have in Las Vegas? It's not exactly the most like consolidated pass catching core, right?
Right? Yeah.
They've got some talent, right? And so I don't mind that. If Derek Carr is going to help you get to week 17, like that's a valid, viable, plus side option here. So I like that pick a lot. I like the value. I like the fact that a lot of the Derek Carr teams are going to have one of his pass catchers, and we still have some outside chance of some stacking partners here late as well.
Yeah. I mean, he gets
Kenyon Drake. Who stacked Derek Carr with only Kenyon Drake? Nobody.
Nobody, right?
Yeah. So like, there's all kinds of variants that can come into play with that. There's game script reasons why that could be a viable option from a DFS sense, through the scope of 1 week. There's injuries that could happen in Vegas. There's all kinds of stuff. So there's still some we'll call it backdoor options available to us if we want to go that stacking route as well.
Right on. All right. 6-2. It is a tight end thirsty room, huh?
Sure is.
Not gonna panic though.
Again, I'm not panicking yet. We're calm here.
I need to get that tequila. I need to get some of that.
That's right. Avión repasado.
Oh.
So what are you thinking here? 2 picks to our selection. Very balanced roster.
I'm thinking value. I'm gonna go Myers here.
Okay. Wide receivers available there. Joshua Palmer, KJ Osborne, who went right after us, Jacoby Myers, and Jarvis Landry, the top of the list there. There is an argument to be made for Jarvis with that correlation piece as well,
right, New Orleans,
with the Chris Olave piece. To me, I don't weight that as much as I think the field does here. KJ Osborne, I think the field probably would have shied away from because this roster has Dalvin Cook. So to me, that would have been more of a tiebreaker to consider. Like,
Gotcha.
Hey, how many rosters are going to have Dalvin Cook and KJ Osborne as the only Vikings on their team? Probably not many.
Yeah.
And there's still, the reason that I bring that up is because we still have later Green Bay Packers that are on the board for correlation pieces. Probably the one that sticks out the most to me is at the tight end position. We have so many unknowns with, is Tanyan going to start the season on PUP? Is he going to be ready? For me, he's got a week 14 bye. So to me, they can rest him and you still get a lot of the season out of him before that week 14 bye.
Yeah. Let's see where we at. 144. 7 picks away. I like the Gainwell falls. I like the QB running back thing.
For sure.
That'd be nice.
I have spoken a lot about why that is. Generates a ton of leverage, and 2, is closer to optimal than the field is giving credit for.
And the great thing about best ball is maybe the running back does score, 2 touchdowns that week and the quarterback doesn't, but that still gives you that, that's what you have the backups for.
If you think about a quarterback, running back, pass catcher stack, that still covers a good majority of the potential game flow outcomes from that isolated game. You still have a back and forth affair that it covers. We're targeting on stacks. We're targeting high scoring games to begin with. So that covers like back and forth. That also covers your team jumping out to a big lead and then looking to put the game away in other means. So there's a lot of leverage that goes into that, particularly in best ball, where the field isn't viewing team stacks and correlations through that lens. And look at that, Jarvis is still there.
Still there.
So we got Gesicki on the board, Trevor Lawrence, who you talked about. We already have 2 quarterbacks, so the little decision needs to be made there. Hunter Henry, high potential for touchdown player. So there goes Gesicki. I have enough to say about Gesicki. I was very overweight last year. I am almost full fade, and I don't like to use that term. I don't just throw that out lightly.
Yeah.
I am almost full fade on Gesicki. What did they do? What did Miami do? They brought in a slew of running backs. They brought in Tyreek Hill, and they brought in Cedric Wilson, who is this forgotten man in that offense. They paid him $22 million over 3 years.
The reports are having him being a blocker, right?
Yeah, he is a phenomenal blocker, but he is also a phenomenal downfield threat. So they have all that. I am highly intrigued how Miami is going to look this year, because between Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Cedric Wilson, they have 3 wide receivers that can work all 3 layers of the field of a defense. So they can dial up all kinds of stuff from 11 personnel. Now you throw in, oh, by the way, Mike Gesicki, who is a mismatch over the middle of the field. They've got some toys to play with for sure.
Yeah, this should be fun.
All right, so we brought it back with Jarvis Landry there. Got that week 17 correlation on pat. Currently, the roster sits at 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and 8 wide receivers with no tight ends through 13 rounds. No, I dig it. We have a guy coming up here who I've been targeting fairly heavily, actually, at the tight end position. And that's, David Njoku, actually.
Yeah.
I started this offseason not really buying into Njoku because of his career routes run rate. You know, he's habitually around the 40 to 45% routes run rate, even lower than that sometimes. But this is a guy who Cleveland invested some pretty penny in. And, oh, by the way, the tight end room has been thinned out.
You're not too worried about Harrison Bryant?
I expect Harrison Bryant to play, but I'm not too worried about Harrison Bryant from
patches,
from a just pure David Njoku upside sapping mindset.
Yeah.
Also on the board, Robert Tonyan. We talked about him earlier. We have some backup potential upside running backs in Michael Carter, Khalil Herbert, and Tyrion Davis-Price. Wide receivers available. We got the skyrocket in flight, Romeo Doubs, Van Jefferson, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jamison Crowder, Marvin Jones just went. So some viable options here available to us.
I'm feeling pretty set at wide receiver. I feel like I need to start filling in somewhere else. I think I'll go with Njoku here.
Yeah, I think that decision for us came down to Njoku or a guy like Tyrion Davis-Price, an upside running back potential, because we have 3, pretty solid floor players at the running back position. Dalvin Cook, we talked about him earlier. Najee Harris, who could challenge for the league lead in running back opportunities. What he does with those is a story for a different day, but obviously the volume at running back position is the best indicator for fantasy production. If he's going to see 370 touches again, highly likely to at least eclipse 325. That's a viable floor from a running back perspective. Then we talk about Devin Singletary. I would view him as a weekly floor option as well. I don't think the field views him that way. I think the field discounts his path to weekly floor. I see a weekly 15 touch running back in a top offense in the league. That's floor, baby. That's floor.
We saw him pop off at the end of last year, right?
So when we're looking at the roster construction that we have here at the running back position, there's decisions to be made about the archetype of player that we would select on this roster. To me, we have floor built in spades right now. So we're looking for those potential lightning in a bottle, comes on second half of the year and wins us $200,000 type guy. I'm looking for, like we talked about, the Tyrion Davis-Price, who has a path to significant playing time in a top running back friendly offense. So we would not be looking for Marlon Mack, maybe not even Gus Edwards here. We would be looking for the path to ceiling at the running back position. Obviously, there's nothing stopping us from taking more wide receivers, but we have other needs, I think, on this roster. And again, we're not panicking at the position just yet, but we're starting to get into the range where decisions got to be made, right?
they're still flying off the board.
Yeah, man. Higbee and Ingram going before Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper and Noah Fant, I think, is a mistake. I have enough to say about the Tennessee offense and how I think the field is viewing their pass catching core. I am higher than the field on Tannehill and his weapons. Noah Fant is interesting here.
Yeah.
Why is that, would you say?
I got some of the Jets. I got Metcalf. And then there's a pretty big drop off too with the tight ends.
Yeah. And even if we wanted to turn this into a 3-quarterback build, we could still stack them up, that offense up, and have DK Metcalf, Noah Fant paired with their quarterback. So I like that pick here. I think I think the field is too low on Noah Fant. I think highly likely the 80% outcome for Noah Fant is he finishes somewhere at the high end tight end 2 range, talking season long points. But we already talked about the Seahawks late season schedule, and that plays very nicely to the roster construction that we have here. Man, TDP is sliding.
Didn't hate it on. Oh, there he goes.
No, he's still there. He's
that was Ryan
top
that
of the
went.
queue,
That was Ryan
yeah.
that went.
There he
There he
goes.
goes.
That was I wonder what he's got, 5 running backs. So that's a very natural selection as your RB5, somebody who carries that kind of upside in TDP.
How do you view the end of drafts? Are you looking like at the guys that like aren't going to be drafted very often to fill it in, like just to get to the low ownership type stuff? Or
round 17 and 18 is
17.
when I'm looking at guys that haven't been drafted or are unlikely to be drafted, but I want the path to upside. So an example like that for somebody that we've already mentioned is Cedric Wilson. He hasn't gotten the offseason buzz yet. He hasn't moved out of the 18th round. He is a guy that goes undrafted some drafts. Other guys like that, Brian Edwards, has not moved out of the 18th round, goes undrafted a lot of drafts, and is the wide receiver too for an Atlanta team that we expect to be throwing the football. So up in 2 picks, got a bunch of floor running backs mixed with Darrell Williams. My view on Darrell Williams is that he would likely be the direct cuff to Connor. So some upside potentially there. We have DPJ. We have William Fuller, who are upside wide receivers late.
I'll go with Darrell Williams. Yeah, I like taking, like, I had a ton of Julio before he got with Tampa Bay. So I like the I've got a lot of Will Fuller now. But I feel like I wanted a running back at this point.
Yeah, I like that. I like Darrell Williams' potential late season upside. James Conner is a guy that I could talk hours about, but he is a guy that I expect to be utilized more closely to how he was utilized at the beginning of last year. So what does that look like? A 60 to 65%, maybe even lower overall opportunity share. He's a guy that basically a ton of his production from last season came when Chase Edmonds was out. Obviously, we're not talking about touchdown equity. He always carries touchdown equity because he is the primary goal line back on a high-powered offense. But I'm talking like opportunity share. I am lower on Connor than I think the field is, obviously, with a early 3rd round ADP. But when we talk about like how I think that offense is going to be run, it's likely that either Darrell Williams or Eno Benjamin is going to be mixing in with Connor, if it is true how I'm feeling about my projections with that offense. And, oh, by the way, Connor is a cancer survivor who has, had chemicals pumped into his body that is going to affect his longevity and his, how his soft tissues hold up, how his bones hold up. That's something that I don't think a lot of the field has been talking about, is like, hey, he might be like a little, I don't like to use the word injury prone, but he might be like one of those guys where his bones are going to shatter easier than others, or
he's gone through a lot already, right?
His ligaments are, so that's kind of my feelings on why I think Darrell Williams is still an upside pick here. So I like that a good deal. I saw you cue Kenyon Drake. I like that. That would be a very, very, very solid RB5 on this roster that is not going to be owned a lot. And he's not going to be paired naked with Derek Carr a lot.
I wouldn't mind going a tight end 3 roster, a 3 tight end roster here.
Concur.
What do you think of Taysom Hill, and when does it become overstacking?
This is an interesting dynamic just based on how this roster is built. So you have 2 pass catchers for New Orleans. We have Taysom Hill, who's like this tight end / gadget / backup quarterback. Like there is a legitimate
throw it to him, right?
There's a legitimate outcome for Taysom Hill throwing the football to Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry at the end
That'd
of the
be
year.
a sweet 10 points, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a tiebreaker for me, I think, between Taysom Hill and Brevin Jordan.
Yeah.
I am very high on Brevin Jordan, especially as a tight end 3. I think he is probably the primary pass catching tight end in Houston over who is it, Farrow? Yeah. So to me, and again, we talked about Houston's kind of late season schedule, where I like that as well. But that's a sneaky, interesting correlation we got going on here for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so I have no qualms with that pick at all. I think it's very, very sneaky.
Right on. And then
So it did turn into a 3 quarterback roster.
yeah.
All right.
He's the ultimate cheat code, right?
Yeah, it could be. We don't know. But definite paths to that. I mean, I don't know if the field is weighting heavily or not, but he's chilling in the 18th round. So we are about to wrap up the draft, man. We are sitting at a 2-4-8-3. I think all eyes are set on Kenyon Drake here. I think that is a very, very viable finish to this draft.
The Hilow special, though. Oh, somebody just took him. They took him. No.
Oh no! Pivot.
The Hilow special, Dearness Johnson, right?
That's right. I will continue hammering that. I think he's just going to linger around this end of drafts range because I don't know if. Okay, I'll phrase it as this: if Kareem Hunt were to be moved this year, I don't know that the highest percentage chance of when that happens. I don't think the highest percentage chance of that happening being preseason. I think it is probably a greater chance that happens after week 6, after week 8, after Deshaun Watson has been sitting out this whole time and Cleveland hasn't been winning games and another team in the league has some running back injuries and they're like, hey, why don't we reach out to Kareem Hunt? We know his contract situation. So I think that is probably a higher percentage chance of happening. And in this format where we're basically hunting for late season upside from these 17th, 18th round picks, it just makes all the sense in the world to me, particularly as a RB4, RB5, RB6 for your 0 RB builds as well.
Yeah. And he's a guy that's proven that he can go off, right? Like it's always nice.
Yeah. 3rd best running back last year in yards over expectation.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. There's a lot that went into my love for Ernest Johnson here. But it's kind of one of those situations where the stars kind of aligned to provide him a legitimate path to late season upside. Other guys, Mark Ingram, which is interesting from the perspective of we've attacked that game rather heavily. To me, I don't go out of my way to overstack things. But if it falls kind of naturally, I'll look to do it. I don't think that Philadelphia and New Orleans is a game that is being overstacked by the field. So I would probably have a little bit greater lean from a borderline tiebreaker mentality. But that's kind of the case. I think those are Donta Foreman is an upside guy, obviously behind CMC. Chris Evans is an upside guy, potentially in Cincinnati with that improved offensive line. So some options on the table here.
I'm with you on there.
Default to Hilow.
I like what's going on with him, and yeah. So I'll go. I think that wraps it up. It's a standard 2-5-8-3, right?
Oh, you bastard! No, I'm just kidding. I love it, man. I think this 2-5-8-3 was constructed in a way that I think the field is highly, I won't say highly unlikely, but likelier than not to not be utilizing or attacking pretty heavily. One, with the Philadelphia New Orleans game stack, I think the field is probably lower than it should be on that specific game stack. 2, with the early running back pairing that we had in the first 2 rounds with Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris, who are 2 guys that are likely to not be paired a lot in this specific contest, because again, we have to think about, this isn't the BBM where the draft window has been open the entire, since the NFL draft. This specific draft launched 6 days ago.
Yeah, first, so right?
That is our draft window, and it's probably only going to last another 7 to 8 days. So we have a very unique snapshot in time where the pairing of Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris in this specific contest draft window is highly likely to not be utilized very heavily. We talked about the upside running back 4s and 5s on this roster, or the potential late season upside guys. We talked about having 3 floor running backs. And then our wide receivers, we hammered those pretty heavily here, but a good mix of potential game breaking or slate breaking upside with that good mix of floor as well as correlation. So I like the way that this roster came together. We didn't panic on tight end. We ended up with Njoku, Noah Fant, and Taysom Hill. Those are 3 guys who are middle tight end 2s to late tight end 2s that carry, I think, that potential for the spike weeks that I think the field is kind of negating here.
I'm going to be so pumped when Taysom Hill throws a touchdown to Jarvis Landry too.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like he could do it even without Jameis getting hurt, which is
for sure.
An interesting perspective too to think about. Yeah. So I mean, if Taysom Hill comes in and like rushes for a score, that's an interesting outcome. If Taysom Hill comes in at one of these unique packages that they have near the goal line and throws a touchdown to Olave or Jarvis, interesting outcome because he's being scored as a tight end. That's 4 points, in a half PPR. That's about what you can expect for a lot of these tight ends that are not getting into the end zone. So interesting team. What I talked a whole hell of a lot, man. What do you think about how that went?
I'm already cashing my 200K. I'm ready. Yeah.
Let's go. I'll meet you in Vegas, dude.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks so much, dude. This was fun.
Yeah, so that was a blast, dude. Again, Andy, do you want to give yourself a shout out on Twitter or the OWS Discord or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on the Discord. I'm Mad Dukes 22, I believe. So I'll be looking for you guys. Feel free to give me some feedback on my roster. I'd love that. And I can't wait to start jumping in and with the season on Discord. I'm pumped for the season.
Let's go, man. Appreciate you letting me tag along and talk some strategy and some theory as we went through that. Again, this is part of the Best Ball Plus. Part of what we're doing. This will be available to the public here shortly. And again, just giving you a glimpse of real world thought processes that we're thinking about when we're drafting these contests. What we're thinking about, when we're thinking about it, how we're thinking about leverage, how we're thinking about roster construction, and giving you a glimpse into a real world example and putting those theories and those tendencies into play in real time. So this was a lot of fun, Andy. Thanks for letting me tag along. OWS fam, again, we look forward to the season. We'll see you in those draft lobbies, and we are out of here.